All right, so Julia, Councilman Lavelle, whenever you guys are ready. I'm not sure if Marimba has returned, so we may want to wait.
I'm good.
Okay, thanks, Marimba. So this is just to let everyone know the meeting is being recorded. Councilman Lavelle?
Sorry, Julia, if we can go ahead and do the roll call.
So Julia, I'll do the.
I was going to say, I'm going to let Kirk take over this responsibility moving forward.
Cool. Did you want to go through this slide first, Julia, or you want me to do the roll call?
I can just do this really quickly. Just a reminder, if you haven't turned in your conflict of interest form, you're not able to participate in discussions, motions, or votes. And just, with Kirk joining, I thought it was a good opportunity just as a friendly reminder to set some meeting norms. Just make sure, we're here, everyone feels safe to speak their piece and share feedback and, enjoy this conversation and participate. And just listen to learn, make sure, you don't have to agree with everyone, just please disagree respectfully, appreciate differences, be open to new ideas, and be present. And let's get some great work done today. Thanks so much, Kirk.
Thanks, Julia. So roll call, is the representative of District 6 present?
Present.
Is the representative of the Hill CDC present?
Present.
Is the representative of the Hill District Federal Credit Union present?
Present.
Is the representative of the Hill District Consensus Group present? Is the representative of Wesley Center AME Zion Church present? Is the representative of Shenley Heights Community Development Program present?
Present.
Is the representative of the Historic Hill Institute present? Is the representative of Ujima Collective present?
I'm here.
Thank you, Lakeisha. Is the representative of the Office of State Representative Arion Abney present? Is the representative of County Executive Sarah Inamorado present? Is the representative of the Office of the Mayor present? Is the representative of Pittsburgh Public School District present? And is the representative of Allegheny County Council present? Thank you. So Julia, this means we do not have a quorum presently. Is that correct?
So Kirk, we have 7 voting members, right?
Okay.
And then, because we only need 4 to constitute a quorum.
Okay.
So
we do have 4 voting members. Yes, we do.
yes. Yep.
All right. Thank you,
And
Alex.
just for the benefit of our listening audience, we should probably take a moment just to introduce Kirk Holbrook. Kirk, I think it'd be a great opportunity just to talk a little bit about yourself and your background just for a second. Your familiarity with the Hill District. Although you've been on the ground for a couple of months now, you may be new to the listening audience. And the voice you just heard is Alex Taylor, who's the attorney for the URA, just for, again, people who may not be familiar with all of the voices.
Thank you very much, Marimba. So it's a pleasure and honor to be here today as the project manager consultant of the Greater Hill District Neighborhood Reinvestment Fund. My name is Kirk Holbrook. As Marimba mentioned, I have a long history in the Hill District, both as a resident, but also as a community advocate and partner advancing work for young people, working in local state government offices, working with the University of Pittsburgh to build partnerships in the community. And again, I'm really proud and excited to be here in this position that has a ability to make a very strong impact and footprint within the Hill District. It's been a couple months that I've been on the ground, and I'm happy and excited to share some of that work with you all today. And as we continue to move forward, I look to meet with as many community members and community residents as we can so we can help this reinvestment fund begin to materialize. So thank you very much, Marimba.
Thank you, Kirk. Please continue.
Cool. So we're going to start with old business. And I know, Julia, you have a couple slides here, so I'm going to let you take over.
Kurt, you go to the next slide. Yeah, just going to give a brief update on the Hill Home Repair Program. Next slide, please. So of the 20 projects for the round of funding that was released, 16 are complete and 4 are under construction. I know one is having its final inspection tomorrow, so that's exciting. And then I know we got a request about some more of the breakdown about the households. So of those 20 projects, of those households, we just kind of wanted to provide this little bit of data here. All the households required critical home repairs to make the home safe and habitable. 17 households, or 85% of the total household income, was at or below 50% AMI. 18 households, or 90%, included at least one senior household member, and that's or someone over the age of 62. 14 households, or 70%, included a household member with a disability. 4 households, or 20%, included children under the age of 5. So that's just to kind of give you an idea about who was served by this program. I know I had shared like a kind of a breakdown of the work that was done previously. I will share an updated version of that with the advisory board. And I will share some photos. I just didn't want to include it in this meeting just because Kirk has a lot to cover. So I will share that after the meeting. That's just additional information.
Thank you, Julie. Are there any questions? Okay. Julie, you want to go for the LERTA financial support report?
Sure. Yes, please. Thank you. Next slide. So just an update on the balance. So we balance as of yesterday is a little over $7.3 million. Some funds have been deposited into the account. So $77,000 from the surface lot revenue for 2023 and 2024. So that's the dollar per car on URA lots was deposited into the fund. And the URA did withdraw our admin fee for the years 2021, 2022, 2023, and 2024. So it's a little over $285,000. And this administrative fee was calculated based on actual staff time spent on reinvestment fund matters using HUD-approved methodology for calculations of CBDG program administration cost. I'll pause here for any questions.
I think I just want to jump in and note that in the future, we just want to make sure that those administrative fees come before before either a committee and or the entire committee or the co-chairs, just to make sure those are approved. Given that the funds are housed at the URA, we just want to make sure that there's agreement, there aren't any questions, and for the sake of transparency, I think that will be an important move. But thank you for the update.
Alicia, did I see your hand? Alicia?
Yes, I'm sorry. I think Marimba handled what I was gonna ask. Was that approved? Because I don't recall, seeing any of those approved, but she just kind of said the same thing. And the whole CDBG part of it was a little confusing for me because I didn't know we were doing that way. But okay.
Well, I agree. I think, just in the interest of everyone being on the same page.
As we've had done, to be honest with you. And I also had a question about what are the remaining funds that this account is owed. At last checked, this account is owed over $300,000 according to my previous notes. And I don't see that calculated into this slide. And I just needed some clarification on that, when we expect those funds.
So we have invoiced, I can speak to the outstanding shortfall to the fund. We have invoiced the developer BPG for the fund, so that money to go into the account, and we have not received a response to date. I know the EMC was planning on also reaching out to them to encourage them to move forward with the payment.
Can you, just for the sake of this call and those who may not be a part of the EMC, like I am, give that amount that is outstanding, please, Julia, that was invoiced?
Yes, I can provide that information.
I just want to keep everybody in the loop here.
Yeah, that's sure. I will send that out in an email to all the advisory board members afterwards. Is that okay?
Oh, yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, yep, no problem.
Okay, I think we should take it one step further, piggybacking on what Marimba and Alicia said. I think that these expenses need to be, sort of voted on by us or approved by us prior to them being paid. I think that would be appropriate and it would be reflected in the minutes that we go along with it. I mean, just to go into the fund that we're supposed to be overseeing to some extent and just taking it out. I mean, it's just a formality, but I think that we should know before the expenses are incurred or get dispersed.
Hey, this
Yeah,
is Alex speaking. Oh, Alicia, go ahead. Sorry, I think I cut you off.
this is Lakeisha.
Oh,
No,
Lakeisha,
I
I'm
just
sorry.
wanted to say that I agree with that because we had been asking for that balance in terms of what was due to the URA. And so it just seems a little like a little bit inappropriate to take the money before we knew even what the balance was. So yeah, if we could do that a little bit differently moving forward, that would be apropos for our role.
Okay, thank you all. Yeah, we so yeah, under the policies and procedures for the reinvestment fund, the URA is entitled to kind of take this out, kind of outside of advisory board approval. But that's not to say we can't, apprise you all of kind of what that amount is going to be before we withdraw it. Because we base that number on actual staff time and we calculate it using kind of that methodology that we use for CDBG, which is fairly restrictive in terms of how we calculate program administrative costs, but we're more than happy to provide that to you before we withdraw that, just for your awareness.
Yeah, even if it is technically okay to do that, but from a communication and from a cohesive situation, I think us knowing that we're going to incur that expense, even though you could do it without our permission, as you said, we still would like to know ahead of time if possible.
Of course, that makes sense.
Alex, I wanted to get a little clarity. You just mentioned that the guidelines stipulate that there are no approvals necessary, or you said you're entitled. Are you entitled explicitly to take those funds without approval or review, or are you just entitled to it because it says 10%? Because I think those are two different issues. I think that what the committee is talking about is disclosure and having I would go so far as to say approval of the 10% that is being taken, because as you know, as an attorney, the URA is somewhat conflicted on this matter, because you're essentially holding the funds and then you're paying yourself. Not to suggest that there's something untoward about what has been done. That's not at all what I am suggesting. What I'm suggesting is that we need to be mindful of that. I mean, it's a significant portion of the fund is up to 10%, if my memory serves me correctly. I don't have that right in front of me, but I just think it's important for us to be mindful of that from a procedural matter and from a conflict standpoint. And then I think the methodology used to track the time is something that we definitely, I think, as a committee need to agree to with the URA. I don't know what the CDBG program administrative kind of, methodologies are. So if you all could offhand, I don't know them, and I certainly don't know them from a government standpoint. So if you could share that with the committee, that would be helpful also. And then we can follow up with this item in the future, as long as we can agree that, additional funds aren't to be taken until we come to an agreement about how that will be happening. How that will be happening.
Yeah, so under the current guidelines, so it's not a 10% fee that we take. It's a URA shall collect an annual fee for administration of the fund equal to actual staff time and costs incurred related to the administration of the fund. So when URA staff are working on reinvestment fund matters, we're billing our time, and we're not always capturing the time we're billing or we're actually spending on reinvestment funds. So this is This number represents only a fraction of the staff hours spent on this program, but that fund is based on actual staff time, kind of like the way CDBG is. So, and this is probably a better question for our financial folks at the URA, but it's kind of calculated based on staff salary, hours spent on the program, calculating kind of PTO and overhead benefits to reflect those actual costs. So because that's kind of the framework that we deal with for what is essentially like our most restrictive fund, that's kind of what we thought was appropriate to use for the reinvestment fund, because when we're talking about actual hours spent, that's sort of the framework we use. Alicia, go ahead.
Yes, and with what you just said, you all have been doing hours in the past, and this is what you've come up with. But now that we have Kirk, will he be impacted by that? And if so, how? Will his hours be factored? How are you doing that? Or is it Kirk separate? And then there's still 10% that we're looking at.
So Kirk is separate because his contract was authorized separately through the reinvestment fund. But that said, with Kirk being on board, we're likely going to see way less of staff admin time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. The reason he is here is really to help with a lot of this and get this stuff done. So it seems to me that there's a doubling of work or task. And is there any division where, I understand Julia does what she does. Okay, get that. James Reed does what he does. I get that. Okay, but then we have Kirk handling the other 70 to 80%. And I'm just kind of trying to make sure that the fund is not giving up monies twice for the same task. That would be my concern. I do think this is a high number. I do understand the 10%, but I just wonder, is there a division line now that we have Kirk and Kirk is working, and would that impact the number of hours he would have under what you just said? This approved methodology, as well as the CDBG administrative cost. Because if so, I think as a advisory board, we need to know that, because that impacts Kirk as well.
Yeah, so there is a division, because whenever with Kirk's hours, those are billed against his contract, which is up to 80,000 a year, and that doesn't dip into the administrative expenses that the URA is taking. That's kind of, we have under the guidelines, the URA charges actual staff time spent on reinvestment fund, whereas we've all allocated this contract for Kirk so that the hours aren't doubling up. They're
okay. I just want to
they're
make
kind of
sure.
paid out as separate line items.
Okay, I just want to make sure we don't have two people doing the same job, and we look up and the hours based on the calculation are really unnecessary. You only need one person doing, and Kirk is coming to take over most of that. That's why I'm curious. Okay, thank you, Alex.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Any more questions?
I just want to make sure that this is taken to the committee with the appropriate URA staff to gain some clarity around this, and we can move forward from there.
Thank you.
Remember, we can organize that.
Thank you.
So on to new business, and this is going to be a portion of the meeting where I'm able to share some of the work that I've started over the last 2 months, and potentially lay out a plan and course of action of how we start to move things forward through the remainder of 2025. One of the things that I wanted to make sure we accomplished today is simple but needed, was setting advisory board meetings through the end of 2025. I believe next month we'll be able to set them till the end of 2026. But what I do want to be able to present is a plan to meet on Thursdays, which I know in the past has been a good meeting date for this advisory board. These dates have also been vetted with our co-chairs, Councilman Lavelle and Marimba Malyans. This will allow us to have monthly meetings again through the end of 2025 with a plan of doing the same in 2026. And I think what this will help us do is, again, just have a recurring rhythm to our ability to meet. But as we move forward in terms of releasing funds, developing guidelines, and hopefully getting some funds out to the community to impact in a positive way, we are going to be needing to meet more consistently as a board. And so I wanted to present these and see if there was any feedback. And if not, is a potential to make a motion to approve these through 2025.
So we're basically going from quarterly meetings to monthly.
At least for the short term, Alicia, if there's at least
Okay.
at least for now.
Okay.
Does anyone have any objection? Okay.
So I'm fine with it. Kirk, are you able to, I don't know if we're going to go back to Zoom, but are you able to do calendar invites for all of these dates so they'll be on our calendars?
Absolutely. And we will go back to Zoom. That was just an error on my part. So we will go back to Zoom and I'll get those out to you ASAP, Lakeisha. Thank you.
Those dates, I could probably make them, but those are our credit union board meeting dates, Lakeisha. That looks like the third Thursday of every month.
Yeah, but this is before that time.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I know it might be tight for you prepping for the meeting.
Yep. So I'll do the best I can.
Okay. And I think moving forward, maybe and we'll see, don't hold me to this, but if we're having more consistent meetings, maybe the length of time won't be as demanding. Richard, don't hold me to that again, but maybe that'll help free you up. Your board meetings start at 4:30? Richard?
They start at 6.
Yeah.
Okay. Understood.
But there's a lot of prep I have to do, so I'll just do
Okay.
it soon. I'll do it earlier.
Kirk, I do think that it would be appropriate to end the meetings at 4:30. That's just my take on it. I do understand having to prepare for a board meeting and want to, kind of respect that demand on Richard's time, but also I think that an hour and a half should be an adequate amount of time for us to cover the content. Maybe it'll, ensure that we all show up, you know what I mean, ready to just deal with the business and keep it moving.
Sounds great. Okay.
Yep, that's good.
Does there have to be a motion to approve these meeting dates?
I move that we approve or accept the meeting dates proposed for the third Thursday of the month. It looks like for the remainder of the year.
Can we get a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against? Anyone abstaining? Motion passes.
Thank you, Marimba. Thank you. So next is the biggest portion of what I wanted to discuss today, which are some proposed funding guidelines. I want to stress that the guidelines that you'll see today are just a framework of guidelines that I've come up with in an effort to have the committee respond as we move forward in shaping and refining these guidelines. I think the first thing that I would like to discuss and put out for consideration is looking at a proposed initial first round of funding, that focuses on 4 to 5 categories. That number of 4 to 5 is not set in stone. None of this is set in stone. But I think if we move towards a first round of funding that focuses on that 4 and 5 categories, it will allow us to, again, get some monies out in some critical areas. It'll allow us to understand the capacity that is going to take to release applications, to get those applications out to potential applicants, to provide technical assistance where needed, and to be able to make recommendations and have the advisory board approve those applications. I think it also gives us an opportunity as an advisory board and group to work through the processes it's going to take to, again, get applications in, recommendations made, and monies into the hands of those who need them. I think what I have showed today will, again, be a conversation starter that we can continue to work through in the coming weeks and months. What you'll see today is currently a framework of guidelines for 4 of the 14 line items within the reinvestment fund. And so I've drafted some guidelines for development initiatives. This is based off conversations had both with the board, community members, stakeholders. We're seeing that there is an opportunity to potentially support some development and see real-time tangible impact on how our funds can be used within the community. You'll see drafted guidelines for the children's, youth, and families line items. This has been important in those same conversations. I think also with some of the cuts to federal and state funding, I think there is an opportunity to support the many youth-serving, family-serving, social service organizations in the Hill District through some grants, again, that could help us get through what may be some challenging times ahead. I also drafted some guidelines for MWBE initiatives that differ from the development initiatives in terms of the ability for these dollars to be granted to minority women business owners within the Hill District to support a wide range of initiatives. And then I drafted a development guideline for workforce initiatives. And this comes really off the comments from many community members that we want to think about the people as we simultaneously think about the bricks and mortar. There may be some opportunities, and there have been some opportunities expressed to potentially use some monies to develop some workforce initiatives that may differ from what has been in the community to date. That may look at different types of industries outside of traditional labor and construction, and we know all of that is important. But I think that these monies could help spur some innovative approaches to helping Hill District residents access family-sustaining wages and jobs. What I'm recommending today, and hopefully we'll get an opportunity to vote on, is that we respond to these initiatives or guidelines, excuse me, and have a robust discussion, but that we would then go to committee and work through these details in advance of our August 21st board meeting. So I will, hopefully that there's a motion to go to committee. We would love to know who's interested in being on that committee and then meet at least 2 times before the 21st. And I know that is a tight turnaround, but I think if we're able to make that happen, again, we'll be close to taking an actionable step forward. The reason why I'm trying to push on in advance of our August 21st advisory board meeting is the next URA meeting is September 12th of 2025. So there is no August URA board meeting. That gives us a chance to work together, although in a tight timeline, to get some guidelines approved once we approve them here as an advisory board. Just for everyone's, just to restate, once we approve as an advisory board here, the URA has to approve, and then we would be able to move forward in terms of getting some funding out. So as I go through these guys, again, I want to stress that these are a framework. As we go to committee, you'll get a more detailed rundown of what has been produced to date. These guidelines, when approved, I'm going to think positively here, will not be set in stone. The advisory board has an inherent ability to adjust on the fly annually, however you all so see fit. So the first guideline that I would like us to talk through is the development initiatives guideline. And I know you're not supposed to read from a slide, but unfortunately, you got to suffer through this for a second. The objective of the Development Initiatives Program, DIP, is to support programs, projects, processes, and activities that further the improvement of land and structures within the Greater Hill District. The DIP aims to provide grant support for new construction and rehabilitation of commercial, residential, and mixed-use development projects in the Greater Hill District that demonstrate readiness, community benefit, and alignment with the Greater Hill District Master Plan. Intended to provide a form of last-in grant support, projects supported by the DIP are capital or programmatic projects in the final funding stage. So the grant amount that we set here to facilitate discussion would be grants awarded through the Greater Hill District Neighborhood Reinvestment Fund will support projects up to $200,000 in total. Funds will be distributed as a lump sum payment. The use of funding is, again, intended to provide grant support for projects that are in the final stages of funding. And the funding guidelines for us to respond to today for the development initiatives projects supported through the reinvestment fund include that projects must demonstrate 90% or more of total project funding already committed, or a funding gap of no more than $200,000 in total. Funding cannot exceed more than 20% of total project costs. And that is, again, to make sure that the dollars are going to where there could be an immediate impact. Applicants must provide evidence of secured site control, permits, or prior capital commitment, evidence that all other funds needed for the project are secured or committed, and an accurate development budget and sources and uses of funding for the project. Just before we open it up for the floor, the amount that we came up here as a recommendation is both based off of what currently is available within the development initiatives line item, but also trying to get a sense, as much as the information that I've been able to gather, as to what sometimes is a potential gap between what they have raised and getting over the finish line. I know, again, that this number may seem a little low, but I think it is a question of whether or not we want to have more modest amounts, or so we could support more projects, or if we want to have an up to amount that is larger, which may be taken up by one project or two projects. So that was just a thought there. I did put some consideration into it, but I would love to hear if there are some initial responses, some initial questions, some initial thoughts that we should consider from the board.
Hey,
Is that Alicia?
yes, thank you. I was trying to get my hand raised and then lowered. Sorry about that. So I just think it's important to point out with this initiative that this in essence changes the guidelines and plans that have already been adopted and voted on and approved. Because when we said a development before, we had it separate, workforce development. We had development investments, things like that. As high, so we would be looking at also changing our allocation lines as these guidelines would necessitate, basically. So I just want, to point that out to everyone, because that's definitely going to have to change with the guidelines.
So,
The
Alicia,
allocation lines and our description, as we had, had in our applications, our guidelines. We already stated the guidelines for these allocation lines.
So Alicia, I want to respond from my perspective and the methodology to how I wrapped
No,
this.
I'm just saying, no, I'm not asking for methodology. I'm just saying that I wanted everybody on the advisory board to, just make sure you're clear on that, because I don't want to go down the road and someone come back to what we've already approved as guidelines. That's all. I'm just trying to make sure everybody can kind of keep this in perspective. This is new.
But I didn't have an inherent expectation. Although, to your point, some of the allocation amounts may need to change or be shifted around, and I think we'll find that out over time. But this was written in terms of what has already been voted on, as a way to help, facilitate the approval process. But I do agree, over time, I believe you are going to find that there's opportunities to move funds around. One of the beautiful things about approving guidelines and getting applications out is we'll really start to see what applications come in, and we'll have a more informed, or I don't want to say more informed, but we'll have an informed justification for some of the percentage breakdowns. So thank you, Alicia. But I think these could work and were intended to work in the original approved allocation plan, if that makes sense.
Alicia, if there are, I think I see Richard Witherspoon and Lakeisha, and then I have a question to follow up to Alicia's comments.
Richard or Lakeisha?
Okay. Well, I do believe in the original list of things that we wanted to do, the original initiatives, there was a development initiative, but I don't know if it was broken out, if it was defined in this way. I think that's the only difference. With the way it's broken out here is sort of like it's getting real specific on what the development initiative could possibly be. But based on, my question is, based on the dollar amount that you proposed, under the development initiative, on the guidelines, how many projects can be done,
So-
at $200,000 based
So-
on the dollar amount allocated?
Yep. So currently, because there was an approval for a 2023 allocation and an approval for 24 allocation, that guideline and that line item is at 465,000. The reason it's not more is the 2023 allocation was used for the housing stabilization program. Remember, those guidelines or those allocations were coming out of the same line item. So instead of 2 years, it has 1 year, which again is 465. But it's up to the board to think about, again, how there may be some changes to the allocation. I hope that answered your question, Richard.
Yeah, so at $200,000, then we wouldn't be able to do very much in that line item if the projects that we took on were maxed out, huh?
Right. And it will be, the way it's phrased now is up to 200,000, which I do believe, some committee members may think is low, but someone may need 100,000 to get their project across the finish line. You understand, Richard? Because there is an amount of justification and information they have to provide to us. So we may get some applicants who need less than that. So it does give us a bit of wiggle room to be able to support more than just what the 2.5 projects that it mathematically amounts to. But again, this specificity does lead to the question of whether down the road or whenever the board decides, more monies may go into certain line items than others.
So until that line item allocation is increased, the up to amount of $200,000 should be lowered.
It could be, but also when looking at, so I've had some ability because of my role at the URA to get a sense of where some projects are. And I know that this is not all encompassing and this isn't all the development in the community, but what that has given me, Richard, is ability to see, what projects are close. And a lot of the projects I've been able to look at their gaps are much larger. So this is in anticipation of maybe 1 or 2 of those projects that I've been able to glean some information from may get to this number in the next year or so, calendar year. And then again, maybe there are, and I'm certain there are other projects that may be already less than this gap. So I think it's just, can we set a framework that gets us close? But I think we will figure out a lot more information once applications are opened.
Okay, thank you.
Lakeisha?
Yeah, I actually had the same question and inquiry that Richard did. And yeah, I mean, I would be concerned to open up a funding stream, and if folks need $200,000, right? Like, we're only going to fund 2 people, and so or 2 projects. So yeah, I think it's I think some more conversation might be warranted. And then I just wanted to ask you, because you said that the total amount was kind of the combination of 23 and 24, right? Is that what you said, that we use money for housing?
Yep. So it isn't
Okay.
the combination. It's just now the 1 year, because that whole first year allocation was used for the housing program.
Okay, and so this is, and that was 2023 money.
Yep.
And so we're only looking at 2024, but not 2025 funds?
I think that's a decision for the board to make.
Oh. Okay, all righty.
Marimba?
Yeah, I just wanted to come back to Alicia's point. I wanted to be sure that we weren't overlooking something and that she did not see a discrepancy, because if there is one, we ought to deal with it now, I believe. And then, I do want to just, go on record and say, from a development standpoint, $200,000 is a very, very modest amount. It's very rare that someone, particularly a larger scale project, maybe a smaller scale project would have this, but it's very rare that somebody has a $200,000 gap in a real estate development project or less. It just, I don't know that I've ever seen a $200,000 or less real estate project gap on anything other than like a single family house development or, a few houses. So I think it's really important for us to understand and appreciate, that we may not have two projects that can evidence that they only have a $200,000 gap, which is why I was so concerned when we liquidated the $465,000 for Hill Home repairs, because unlike some of these other categories where you may have some categories where $40,000 can go a really long way, right? Or $25,000 can make a tremendous amount of impact in terms of maybe some programming initiatives. From a development standpoint, it just doesn't go as far, particularly depending on some of the, at any rate, I'll stop there. But I just think it's important for us to appreciate and understand the realities of what this amount can mean or, does mean in the context of the current development market. Thank you.
Understood. Remember, and I would love to talk further through that with you, but your point is well taken. Are there any other comments related to development initiatives? And right now I can't see hands, so just
Alicia
jump on
has
in.
her hand up.
All right, sorry. Alicia?
You're on mute. Oh, maybe she took it down. Okay, I think maybe it was up by accident. Okay, I think we're ready to move from this item, Kirk.
Thank you, Marimba.
We can hear you
Alicia?
now, Alicia.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was just saying in the past, in this category, to help make it sustainable, we also included loans. Are you, looking at that for this, or is that somewhere else? This, I'm looking at how to sustain this category based on what we've, already set up, kind of.
Yep.
And
So
loans
thank
was
you.
a way to keep the money coming back in.
Yes.
Mhm.
Thank you, Alicia. And I think that's a really important question. What this proposed framework is related to these four line items that we're going to discuss today are intended to be grants, but I know there is a sustainability question there for sure. I think in going back to some of the advisory board meetings earlier, and guys, I do review these numerous times. I know that there was a thought that grants may be easier to get us going, but loans definitely are going to be needed for sustainability. Also with loans, there is an infrastructure, an underwriting, things that we need to consider. Although again, I've been brought on to do the bulk of the work, there is going to be some expertise related to loan that we'll need to think through how that is developed and how we kind of partner to make the loans a reality. Does that make sense?
Sure, it does. I was just wondering because this and another category were the only two places where we actually had loans like this. So just wondering if we're going to make it up somewhere else. That's all.
Okay.
Okay, no problem. Just curious.
Thank you. I think I heard a hand go up.
No, that was Lakeisha coming back to the meeting.
Thank you, Marimba.
Mhm.
All right, guys, I think that was great discussion. Exactly what I was hoping to accomplish today. So I just wanted to move on to the next line item. So children, youth, and education, again, and to Marimba's comments just a few minutes ago, there are funds that I believe can make an impact with some of our youth serving programs, particularly in a climate where, again, funding is in jeopardy or has been eliminated from a federal and state level. And so the objective of this Children, Youth, and Education Initiatives program is to support community-based organizations that serve children and youth living in the Greater Hill District. The program aims to increase the capacity of community-based organizations to provide educational activities, social services, and experiences related to STEM, the arts, athletics, cultural awareness, and the improvement of educational outcomes. I tried to just mention as many potential ways that this could be utilized. Again, these are just guidelines. We can call out other potential ways of impacting, but it's just kind of to create a broad base of outcomes. So the grants awarded through this Reinvestment Fund program will support project ideas up to 25,000 in total. That number was arrived at both looking at 2 years of a line item, and then looking at the number of tremendous youth serving social service type of organizations we have in the community. So this is a question of if we keep it at a more moderate number, are we maximizing the programs that we can impact? I think the number is moderate, but I think it could infuse again some potential resources and programs during a tight budget season. The program is intended to build upon and expand existing programs and or fund future forward initiatives. And that's just to try to spur some innovation intended to enrich the lives of children and youth in the Greater Hill District. Children and youth are those aged 21 and under for the purpose of this program. And again, that age was set with the knowledge of the many different youth serving programs we have in the Hill and the different demographics of young people that they engage with. Eligible activities include, but are not limited to, again, this was not to be limiting, but to help applicants maybe see and develop a application to receive some monies. This could support the instruction or delivery of educational, STEM, arts-based, recreational, and cultural activities, educational, STEM, arts-based, recreational, and cultural field trips and experiences, purchasing of equipment, supplies, or materials, activities that celebrate and recognize the achievement of youth and children and youth in the Greater Hill District, and activities that engage, educate, and involve parents and caregivers of children and youth in the Greater Hill District. I think just since I put this slide together, had a conversation with a individual that made me think maybe we want to add eligible activities around providing daycare and working with younger children. But this is what I put together for you all to respond to today. Again, please feel free to jump in and ask any questions or provide any information.
Recognizing Brittany Collins.
Hey, Brittany. Thanks for joining.
Thank you. Hi. Absolutely. And I do apologize, not to take us backwards, but I was in my car and was not able to get to my mute or hand raising button fast enough. But just
Okay.
a quick question for the previous line item, which is at 465.
Yes.
For 2024. I know that and again, this is not taking into account the actual impact of the first round that we did with those home repairs, or I think about 20 homes were renovated or updated with that funding source. But it did seem as though we had an overwhelming response, and one of the notes that you mentioned was looking to have a more immediate impact. So not saying that 200,000 going towards a larger scale development project may not be impactful, but would there be consideration in revisiting some of the 500 or so applications that were received to then have a more wider spread impact on the existing housing stock that might need to be repaired? And
Yes,
is that
so-
something that would be considered with that line item?
So I want to respond from my perspective, Britt, but thank you for joining the meeting and providing insight. I think that line item was extinguished again in 2023. So there hasn't been any ability as of now to utilize that line item for brick and mortar development. And I think the board may want to consider, how do you strike a balance between both, right? And right now that line item has already been used for housing. Nonetheless, I do understand what you mean in terms of need. And again, when I've been able to meet with people in the community and others, that need still seems like it's there. And so I think it would be up to the board, to Alicia's earlier point, if there may need to be some money, funds moved around from other line items to maybe support another initiative of that nature. But I think right now what I'm proposing is that line item does go to some development because it was unable to go to any development previously.
Alicia, recognizing Alicia.
I'm sorry.
Alicia's question is what percent? Go ahead, Alicia.
I'm sorry, I was having some mic challenges and not sure I'll be able to do it. I put it in the box as well. I just wonder what percentage of, I'm sorry, have you guys finished with development? Because I wanted to go back to the child and youth
Well, I just wanted to see, Alicia, if there was, we can go to the chat. I wanted to see if there was any reaction to Britt's comments.
Oh, I'm
But-
sorry.
I
Mine
have,
is what
I,
you
I'm
said
sorry.
earlier, I mean, what you were on, that's all.
Yeah, my only comment to that would be to, just keep in mind that this fund wasn't originally secured to be strictly for development. I just want to remind everyone of that, and that it was allocated, that it was that in the spirit of community, we approached it with great diversity and using the guidance of the CSIP also, right? So I think that as we think about a lot of the comments that we hear daily are around commercial development. What's going on with Center Avenue? Why don't we have businesses in our community, right? And we know that there's a dire need for investment in housing. The URA has a housing opportunity fund that can, possibly support some of that. There may be some other opportunities, but I just want to be mindful that we do not inadvertently cannibalize our residential future because we are not investing sufficiently in our commercial future also. Just something for us to think about as we, as we collectively try to figure out how to bring additional investment and amenities into our community. This is one of the few sources that is, controlled by Hill District stakeholders and who understand the commercial needs and who can invest in them. So I think for me that strongly overrides, redirecting another year into single family housing. However, I do recognize, again, like Kirk said, that need, and I strongly suggest that people apply to the Housing Opportunity Fund at the URA. Thank you.
Thanks, Marimba. If it's okay, I would like to move back to the children's, youth, and education. Alicia, I know you had some comments there.
Yes, I entered it in the chat. Based on this plan, what is the percentage of the budget that's going to be designated to this initiative? Like how many projects are we projecting if each applicant can apply for up to $25,000 in total, like each idea? So I'm just trying to get an idea of how much of our budget we're looking at going towards this.
Right. And so I think that, again, it's up for the board to consider. And I don't have the allocation numbers right in front of me, but I know that this is 2 years of what was voted on to allocate to children's, youth, and education. We may want to explore lessening the up to 25. Alicia, I thought, again, that was a good number if there was a critical need. But it would just be a math problem. And again, it would be up to the board to say, we want to fund, half of what we currently have. There may be a conversation you all had to Lakeisha's point a few moments ago. Maybe there is a vote to allocate some more from 2025. Again, I think that is the thinking that I want to support the board in so that we can collectively come up to a shared understanding.
Alicia, I believe that number is, let me just get it for you. Give me 1 second.
Well, I was just basing it on.
It was supposed to be 8%. The
8%.
allocation plan, 8%. Yeah.
Right. So I think it's 120 each year. I think it's up to 240.
That's correct. For 2 years. Mhm.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean that we have to spend down that entire amount. I think that what we're saying, and it also doesn't mean that everyone who applies is, going to get $25,000. I think that is a part of the, the nuance that is going to become really apparent as soon as we start receiving applications. So that's just something to think about.
So your math says 8%, Marimba? Is that what you got?
It does per year.
Cool.
Per year.
Cool. That's all I needed. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments related to these proposed guidelines? Okay. So I would like to move on to workforce development initiatives. Again, this was with the understanding that there is a desire in the community to think about the people and how we impact the people in addition to businesses and brick and mortar development. These guidelines are written in a way where it may be able to spur some new partnerships. I've heard some interest in that, and some new initiatives that may be focused on different types of employment opportunities. So the objective of the Workforce Development Initiatives Program is to support programs, projects, processes, and activities that further the efforts of residents of the Greater Hill District to access economic opportunity and prevent displacement. So that the idea here and the big dream is that we would be able to begin to seed workforce development initiatives that could lead to economic opportunity for our residents. The program aims to provide grant support for initiatives that prepare individuals for opportunities created by the development of the Lower Hill District, as well as employment opportunities related to other existing and emerging industries in the region. And I've had some really good discussions about some of the opportunities at the Lower Hill District. And recently, my thoughts were kind of moved towards, what are the tremendous amount of employment opportunities that may actually be at F&B Bank based off of its operation, and are those things that we need to think about. So again, this is just meant to kind of spur some new thoughts and ideas, or support existing thoughts and ideas. The grants through this reinvestment fund program will support project ideas up to $40,000 in total. Again, that number was arrived at thinking about, what would it potentially take to build a pilot that doesn't already have infrastructure. But again, those monies could also go to existing programs and create and help facilitate efficacy by providing stipends or ways for young people to continue participation, which I've seen be successful. The program is intended to support and expand existing programs, as I said, and/or support new future-forward initiatives that will connect Greater Hill District residents with emerging opportunities in the region. These activities include, but are not limited to, workforce training and credentialing, paid internships, pre-apprenticeships, on-the-job training, career readiness, soft skills development, wraparound supports, employer partnerships, and sector-based training models, retention services, job placement, etc. So I wanted to see if anyone had any questions or thoughts here. And also wanted to say another reason why the line item potential up to award is larger than the Children's, Youth, and Family and Education, in part is due to, I would imagine, the interest and the amount of applicants we'll get for Children's, Youth, and Education would be quite large based off the existing organizations and programs we have in the community now. The workforce development, I'm not aware of a tremendous amount of programs or organizations currently working in that capacity. Again, hopefully this will enable more organizations to work in that capacity, but looking to see if maybe the number of applicants would be less, so potentially the awards could be more. Just a brief thought and some context.
So Kirk, I appreciate that rationale. I think my perspective on this one, it does feel a little high for me given the amount of the fund that is committed to it, which is 4%, 60,000 a year.
Mhm.
So would front load pretty heavily, a large portion of an annual allocation towards workforce development. I don't know. It feels like it's a little high. I would probably yield towards, the 25 number, but maybe others have different, perspectives on that.
Okay, thank you, Marimba. Does anyone else have any feedback here? Any recommendations?
Kirk, I have a question. Based on your conversations, because this looks pretty thorough, and with the eligible activities, out of all of them, based on your conversations, what do you think is the one we'd see the most applications from? Just
I think
based
that the
what-
actual training and credentialing.
And-
And then
okay,
I would see the probably second would be connecting that with a real employment opportunity, whether that's through an internship or a pre-apprenticeship, or, being able to compensate someone who has been trained, has a credential, and now is going on the job for further training. I think those seem to be sweet spots from what I'm hearing.
okay. Probably across the board too, huh? 'Cause
Yeah.
I know how business it is increasing. Okay, cool. Just questioning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And if it's okay, I would like to move to the last proposed guideline, And I think this one has again had some really careful thought to try to expand on the support we're able to provide across the board. And this is related to MWBE development initiatives. And you'll see how it differs from development initiatives in a very clear and strategic way. So the objective of the MWBE Development Initiatives Program is to promote the equitable growth and sustainability of minority and women-owned businesses in the Greater Hill District by providing financial support for early stage operating and capacity building activities related to business growth and development in the Greater Hill District. This program is intended as a jumpstart mechanism, helping to close capital gaps for MWBE businesses and developers through flexible funding for soft costs, technical assistance, operations, capacity building, and project readiness. This program supports businesses that contribute to the cultural, social, and economic vitality of the neighborhood. These grants will be awarded up to $25,000 in total. I would love to have a discussion if that seems too low or too high. And these funds can be used for a range of soft costs, pre-development activities, business operations, so it may be an existing business that wants to expand, develop a new product, capacity building expenditures. This includes jumpstart again and soft costs for development projects, as well as operating and capacity building expenses. And this is a more detailed list of just things, again, in discussions that I've taken note of. It's not meant to be all encompassing of what potential uses could be, but I think it is substantial. So it could support feasibility studies, architectural engineering services. Again, I can let you guys kind of read through this, but legal support needed related to development, site control, permitting, financial analysis. On the other side, it could provide professional services relating to marketing, branding, business planning, equipment and technology necessary for operations, insurance, business certification costs, so whether that's getting your MWBE certifications or license, working capital for operations. I think we have, some business owners who've been in the community for a long time and may need some support to remain as, that they move forward on future plans. Training and workforce development for business owners or staff. I imagine this would likely generate a lot of interest. And I think working with you all as thought partners could have a tremendous amount of impact. But I would love to hear what some of your thoughts are here.
Recognizing Richard.
Thank you.
Thanks,
I
Maura.
think that for this type of effort, I think the dollar amount is kind of low. To to help with business development, and to even, especially if we're going to help jumpstart a business, it takes a bit more capital than that. Maybe we could take a look at that line item. I don't know what the percentage is. Does anybody know what the percentage is in the overall, how much was allocated for this effort?
I want to say it's 210. Am I correct, Marimba? It's 210 total.
But
Sorry, Alicia.
it's 7%.
7%.
Mhm.
So I think that was 105,000 per year.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And there's another 1% that could theoretically go towards it, but it's 7% right now.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So, well, maybe, once we get started with allocations, we can definitely take another look at it in terms of how much we're giving out for this line item. But just looking at it from this angle, I think that's a pretty low number.
Okay. Understood, Richard. Thank you.
Mhm.
So can I just get a clarification? Well, first let's hear from Lakeisha, and then Richard, if you can offer a clarification on the number that you were thinking, that would be helpful, and then recognizing Kim after Lakeisha.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, my inquiry is really about how maybe how the criteria might be written. I know that we're calling this the MWBE, but folks wouldn't have to be certified through the county in order to be eligible for these funds, correct?
That would be up to us to decide, Lakeisha. There is, I believe, some language where I was thinking of going in that direction, but based off the recommendations here, maybe that's prohibitive. So
I totally agree that shouldn't use it. And so I just wanted to think about maybe how we label or identify this particular funding category.
Okay, thank you, Lakeisha. And again, I think it may have said have the certification or be based in the Hill District. I would love for us to look at that in committee, or even when I send it out to the board, and make sure we get a spot that's not prohibitive, not too restrictive. But I do think that I was thinking through, if they don't have that, but they're a minority business owner in the Hill, would they still be able to apply?
Thanks, Keisha. Recognizing Kimberly.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon, Kim.
Yes, I apologize for being late. I was having a problem getting in. I always have problems with Teams, by the way. So
We'll be on Zoom moving forward, Kim.
no problem, no problem. So yeah, I agree with Richard. This is too low, and I also kind of feel that the description. I mean, for some of the services that are in the boxes, for some of the soft costs of some things, I could see that, but I remember when we were having this discussion before, we were looking at the allocations, we thought, especially for a business, there's a lot of different costs that come up. And we actually thought that the allocation of, I guess it was like around 100,000, that it would cover like 2 businesses,
Okay,
for the year,
thank you,
or
Kim.
for whatever the cycle would be.
Okay.
So yeah.
And thank you, Kim, for that. And I think, again, this is up for the board to decide as we continue to discuss these things. I think that's exactly the conundrum we'll face sometimes. Do we have a more moderate number that supports more, or do we have a larger number that will provide greater support? And again, I think those are discussions that we continue to need to have. So thank you for that.
Yeah, one thing we could consider is having sort of like 2 tiers. One tier being startup. Obviously it costs more to start a business than to have support for an existing business.
Right.
I mean, maybe like 40 to 50,000 for the startup and 25,000 for support, for example. So that's something worth considering. But trying to use only $25,000 for a startup, especially when it comes time to pay people until their revenues start flowing, and inventory and things like that, and even overhead costs. They would need that type of support to get started, like a jump start, so until their revenues start flowing. Just as an example.
No, thank you, Richard. And your whole point about having operating expenses while some companies may be waiting for payment or on a net 90 or net 30, net 60 type of payment system. I was thinking through that, but I like your suggestion about having multiple tiers and making sure the tier that an applicant is placed in is appropriate for what their needs are. So I could see that this one is going to take some thought, but there's more than enough expertise on the board to help us, I think, get to a good place. So
yeah, I do want to make one comment relative to that. I think, and I know we'll have to talk about this in committee, but I want us to be mindful of, for example, if we're going to be last in on certain projects, right, from a development standpoint or something of that nature, maybe we can also be last in on a business growth strategy, so to speak, right? Because no business is going to be able to survive off of grant funds alone. If you do not have a business plan, if you have not sat down and talked to a bank, if you've not positioned yourself for a loan, if you do not, have some of those very fundamental financial mechanisms in place in order to grow the business, then it may not be the best idea for us to invest grant money there. However, what might be a good strategy is to come alongside some of the traditional financing that may not be sufficient capital for the kind of growth that folks are looking for. I don't think we don't have enough capital to solely support a new enterprise. We don't have that kind of capital, right? So then where can we have the impact from a business standpoint. And I think that's the thinking we have to do. Richard, it would be great if you could do some analysis around the portfolio of businesses that the credit union has served and, the size of loans that they have requested, what those loans were, going towards. It'd be great to get some of that information. And Kirk, perhaps we can also reach out to some of the banks that are operating in the Hill District to see if they can provide us with a little bit of information relative to what businesses within our neighborhood are requesting when they come to them. Thank you.
So, great point, Marimba, and great idea. And I'll make sure I follow up with Richard and our banks. And I think that'll even further help inform where we arrive. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you. I don't see any other hands raised at this time.
Okay.
I just want to echo Marimba's point that we also really need to strongly consider this being a loan product.
Okay. Thank you, Councilman. Beautiful thing is I've heard these things too. So I know it's just trying to get us all to an agreement on how to start this out. I think this was really great. If there aren't any other points of discussion.
Hi, Kurt. Hi, team. I was just asking, last year sometime, there was a presentation about small business grants for loans where there could be potentially a matching source. And I was just wondering, is that along the lines of what was proposed or kind of what was just discussed about how we might need to partner or figure out how to leverage the funds? Because I know that was presented by the URA, and I don't know if that was ever voted on by the committee or where it went. It was kind of like a presentation that happened, and then I don't think anything else. And I could be recalling this, incorrectly. So please correct me if I'm wrong. But I do think that was something that was presented before.
Yes. So Britt, what I heard was, yes, it was what was just proposed was something in that vein. I don't know if the proposal was that exact proposal, but looking at where there could be matching resources from, I'm sure
it's like matching
or other entities.
Yeah, something like 250,000 up to 250,000 match or something like that. I don't know if we still have access to that information or if that's something that's even a possibility or something we should revisit.
We do. I'm sure we do, Britt, because I know it's out there. So I think that could inspire whatever the board comes up with. But I will dig that out and look through that thoroughly for sure. Thank you. So
okay, I think we can move on from this topic.
Yep. So I think the next thing that I was going to ask for, Marimba, before we just go to an outreach plan, was just to see if there was any support for a motion to form a committee around these guidelines. That committee can begin meeting as soon as next week. Again, for those of you who had joined the call a little late, we set our dates for the rest of the year. Calendar invites will be sent out tomorrow. Our next meeting will be August 21st. It's important, if we want to get these guidelines approved, that we try to put the work in over the next few weeks so that we could approve them as an advisory board and the URA could subsequently approve them. So if there is support for being able to form a committee around these guidelines, it would be great for someone to put forth a motion, and then I'll work with you all to get exactly who wants to be a part of that committee. If there are specific guidelines that you would want to work on related to others. But if you guys feel like that is a good next step, seeing that we had good conversations here, please propose a motion.
Okay, first, before we open the floor to entertain a motion, Kirk, I want to recognize Alicia as it may be pertinent to whatever we just talked about.
And I'm sorry, Marimba, I'm just not able to see the hands.
I know, that's okay. That's okay.
What Kirk just said is what I want to circle back to before we moved on. August 21st basically is the deadline. And members of the last draft committee on here, Kim, Lakeisha, Richard, when we came up with the last guidelines, and correct me if I'm wrong, it took 2 months, maybe more, not sure. So I'm trying to, see how we as a group would be able to do this within the next 3 weeks. These guidelines alone took 2 months, maybe longer. I can't recall because it seemed like forever when we were doing it. But do we really think we can accomplish this? And how would we accomplish this over the next few weeks. I mean, I work with the plan. I want to work with the plan, but I know my schedule and I'm a little concerned about what I can do. And I, would assume the same would apply to those who helped develop the original ones that we have.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
So
And
I didn't want us to move on without setting that timeline, because that's a now thing based on
Yep.
the deadline we have.
And Alicia, I'm fully aware that that was a very ambitious timeline, and that was purposefully done just to see if we did think that this is something we could accomplish. Something that may be more realistic is maybe we work on a couple of the guidelines now, with hopes that maybe we'll be able to get 2 of them approved by September, and then work on the other 2. I would hope that, I understand schedules are tight, and I understand this is ambitious. But I hope that I would be able to be a support, working on this full time to maybe help us get somewhere that we feel comfortable about. But I do acknowledge it is a heavy lift. But even with that said, if we do start the process of having committees, we'll get close to the goal.
So let me just get my head around the timeline, the goal, the August 21st date. Kirk is in an effort to get on the September URA board agenda to approve the release of funds. So and the fallback plan would be the October agenda.
Yep.
If for whatever reason we missed that.
Yeah,
So
or we would get some in September and some in October. Yeah.
So recognizing Alicia's point and the urgency that we've all shared for many, many months now, we can attempt to get it done. And if we are not successful, we can plan for the October board meeting. Alicia, are you comfortable with that?
Yes, I am. I just wanted to hear, some thoughts on that.
Okay. Tom, is your comment pertinent to this topic, or should I come back to you?
No, Marimba, you made the point I was going to make. The URA board meets monthly. I mean, we don't have a meeting this August, but we will have our regular board meeting every month. So that just for the committee to have that data point, that while September obviously is a great goal for the URA board, we'll meet in October, we'll meet in November, we'll meet in December for sure.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to move forward with the hopes of completing our work by August 21st as a committee. First, putting in place a committee by way of email follow-up from Kirk. And if you are interested, please contact Kirk regarding that. And secondly, with the goal of completing that work by August 21st, to get on the URA board meeting in September. And if for whatever reason we are not able to complete our work by August 21st in committee, then we will aim to use the October URA board meeting as our deadline, which means we probably need to finish the work mid-September. And that date can be defined by Kirk also in a follow-up email. I'll entertain a motion for that if anyone desires.
Well, so moved.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
By show of hands.
Aye.
Aye. Against? Is anyone abstaining? Motion passes.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, so I just want to run through these last, maybe one slide, just to give you guys a glimpse into, what I was thinking over these next few months in terms of how to continue to engage the community, maybe just open up a broader engagement. As of now, it's kind of been measured. And so for the remainder of the 2025 year, I'm hopeful to engage the community through these measures. It's not exclusively these, but these are the things I wanted to call out. So I would like to start hosting office hours beginning in August at varying locations in the Greater Hill. So that could be the Carnegie Library, Pittsburgh. That could be the Hill CDC. That could be anywhere where someone would be open to me being in place, being able to meet with residents, and answer some questions. It's intended for engagement with residents, organizations, business owners in a one-on-one or small group setting. I think right now that strategy has been effective. And I think as we start to open up office hours, that'll allow for some more intimate engagement. And I think that this is the way that I'm hopeful to continue to connect with the community. I'm exploring some small group presentations. Again, small group has been effective thus far. And so looking to engage some community groups, traditional and non-traditional. Most of these efforts have been just to provide some transparency and some detail related to what the fund is, what its evolution is, and it's all in an effort to build trust within the community. I think it's going to be appropriate to begin convening groups related to guidelines. And again, I've had some of these one-off conversations, but it might be really helpful to get a couple of business owners in a room, have a discussion, further help get some input as we move to refine our guidelines. And then, again, this is a hope, but to have some level of a community-wide engagement in September or October, hosted with Councilman Lavelle, where we invite the entire community in to have a discussion. And hopefully by then we'll have made some significant achievements and have some really great discussions with the community. And then the last piece, and I mentioned this in my interview, and I think, again, if things continue to move forward in a very positive fashion, it would just be great to get a newsletter together. I think, well, I know it's been a journey. There is some good work that we've been able to do. There is some momentum that we've been able to foster. And so thinking of how I'm able to put that together, how I'm able to get that out, and then have that be a consistent practice as we begin to have huge impact and success in the community. So that was what I wanted to close on. I want to see if there are any questions or comments related to this plan or any additional ideas.
I
Seeing-
do want to add, I don't see anyone. Alicia just raised her hand. Kimberly just raised her hand. I was going to make a comment. I would just want to be sure that if we are talking about for the community-wide meeting, that is, I guess, the committee that you're asking to be available for that in particular.
Absolutely.
I think that's important to specify with Councilman Lavelle. And there was one other item. And maybe we can save that for later. The follow-up item is just also keeping potential and other investors involved in our work is going to be really important so that they are attracted to investing in the community. And we can discuss that more later, but with funding drying up across the board, I think it's important that folks see that we are, investing in ourselves, and maybe they will be encouraged to continue investing in the Hill District at the scale that we need in order to thrive. Thank you. Alicia and then Kimberly.
I was just simply wanting to thank Kirk for putting this proposal before us today. I know it took a lot, Kirk, to come up with this part. And the hard work, of course, is going to be in the next few weeks. But we, as an advisory board and our committee groups, put together to make this, happen, or provide clarity, or even change allocation lines so that it can be presented. But I just wanted to thank you for reaching out like that and taking this first step. As you come, this is really your first meeting. So thank you very much for that, Kirk.
Thank you, Alicia.
That's all I wanted to say. I had no comment on any of the other slides. I just wanted to thank you because I got to run soon.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Kimberly.
Yes, Kirk. So I had, one other suggestion, and I'll also get with you after this meeting, just because I wasn't able to be here earlier.
Okay.
What have you done thus far? Because you're already involved in the community. So what have you done or heard from your communication since being hired for this position?
So I think that's that's broad, and maybe Kim, I'll be able to put forth a document that maybe speaks to some of those findings. I think what I've really been focused on during this time, obviously, is, I did do a good job connecting with most of the advisory board members. I have connected with some stakeholders, but I've had a very intentional focus, Kim, on just meeting with some residents, and like I said, trying to build some transparency and answer some questions. And I do think one of the key findings has been the need to be, which I was brought in to be, right, the bridge between the investment fund, the work on the board, and the overall community. I think I spoke with someone early on when I first started that if I could imagine some biggest wins at the end of 90 days, towards the top of that list would be starting to build avenues towards trust, and opening some transparency so people are aware. And so, Kim, I can get with you and talk a little bit more in detail, but it's been measured, but it's been both meeting with organizations, people who may have some ideas or things like that, but then also meeting with the community residents themselves who maybe just had some questions about the evolution of the fund, letting them know that I'm here as a resource, and again, trying to establish that connectivity and rapport.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that. And so I'll say this publicly, but I'll probably have some more for our meeting. I was thinking about the business again, and I'm just thinking that that was like more high level for people who are creating, I don't know, just from the guidelines, it seemed like a substantial business. But I'm thinking about our creativity and innovativeness in the community. And I'm thinking of like a very small level. And I do think that we should actually offer like small grants for the entry level point. For example, people who are braiding, people who are barbers, people who are making plates. We do a lot of impromptu, innovative things to serve our community that oftentimes people don't necessarily know. Hey, you can turn this into a business. You do know this, right? And it doesn't always have to be this informal thing that you're doing in the neighborhood. And I mean, we've all seen this. So I'm just thinking about and considering actually for those small entree businesses that we not be the last option, but that we could actually be the first option, but for a small amount of like $5,000.
I, I think that could be something we work in there, Kim, and I think we can work some of that out more. And maybe that's part of the tiered system that was a recommendation. But I think, again, I think that one is going to take a lot of really looking at all the ingredients and getting a product out that tries to meet as much of the need as possible. But that sounds like a good suggestion as well to me.
Thanks. And that was all. Anything else, I'll talk to you about it because I was late. So I apologize again.
Yeah, no problem, Kim. Thanks for showing up, and I'll follow up with you tomorrow. So, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I don't see any more hands up. I know you can't see the hands, Kirk, so I just wanted to assure you that there are no more hands up. And I think that means we're ready to adjourn the meeting unless you have any closing comments. I'll call for adjournment.
I would just say thank you, everyone, for being here. And I think this was a very great first step in the first meeting that I attended. So I look forward to working diligently and hard to help bring all of this together. But thanks again to all of you.
Thank you, Kirk, and thank you, everyone else. Meeting is adjourned.